wait a minute, this isn't Liza, that's Liza. That's Liza's baby. I mean, it was almost like deja vu, because they look so much alike. And I wished at that moment that Mike and Richard could have been there, because they would have been so proud of her.
Oh, yes.
But they were.
Now, recently, the Film Society of Lincoln Center honored you and showed a retrospective of your films. And I was very touched when you singled out your mother and introduced her. And you said, and thanked her, not only for giving you birth, but for being with you, being there for you her whole life. Now, she is about to turn 90 years old.
In August, yes. And I never have done that publicly.
No, you never have.
And she flew to New York for the tribute. I've never sort of been one to get up and say, I want to thank my mother and my father and my kids. Hi, son. And not that I'm making fun of people that do that. That sounds awful. It's just that I'm very self-conscious whenever I get up to say thank you. I usually just thank everybody generally. And I thought, my God, it's time I thanked her.
You've carved a truly remarkable and a seemingly successful relationship, mother-daughter relationship with her over the years. When you look back, what do you think your mother really gave you, Elizabeth? What did she tell you about life?
Well, I think my mother and my dad filled me with my basic philosophy. And it certainly didn't come from studio executives. I could have been spoiled, rotten, and had a totally inaccurate picture of real life because I was brought up in a fantasy world, you know, where you'd go into the commissary as a child for lunch and see history. You'd see Egypt having lunch with Red Indians. You know, it was all totally unreal. And to try and get a sense of balance and reality, my parents were very firm about that.
You said they gave you your basic philosophy. What is that philosophy?
I guess I respect honesty in people. I need honesty more than probably any other quality. And I learned that from my parents. Well, I have two, I guess. National Velvet, which was totally me. It was even my horse. And Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, because that was the most challenging. I was 32 and playing 50-something. And I had to change my entire personality, my carriage, my voice, everything. And it was Mike Nichols. He suggested that I have voice lessons. Well, I've never had voice lessons, acting lessons.
Would be nice. In the meantime,
To get around into so much.
Shows. Today we're going to talk to Elizabeth Taylor, the mother, the grandmother, and as you're about to hear, it's the role that she values most in her life. I'm back with Elizabeth Taylor, and we were both sort of stumped there for a moment about what that theme was, and that's from Giants.
Yeah, I didn't
Another
remember
picture. Is that one of your favorites?
Yeah, I enjoyed making
Yeah,
that
one of
a
mine
lot.
too. What's your least favorite film?
There are so many,
Oh,
I couldn't
come on,
begin
no.
to list
There's
things
gotta
you've
be
never
one.
heard of.
There's got to be one that makes you shudder.
Have you ever heard of a film called The Big Hangover? The Girl Who Had Everything.
Stop.
There's one born every minute.
I don't even know those titles.
You're lucky.
We just saw your children, and did we see some of the grandchildren, or those were
No,
just the
those are
kids?
all mine.
Four children. There's Michael, Chris, Liza,
And
Maria. And you have 6 grandchildren.
Yeah.
What would they say about their grandma? I don't know what they could. Everybody's got a nickname for the grandma. Do they have one for you?
Granny, Grandma.
What kind of a grandma are you?
One of my grandsons used to call me Gang Gong, and I absolutely adored it. But Christopher and his wife, Eileen, decided that he shouldn't grow up, you know, calling me
you
Gang Gong, and I adored it.
It's wonderful. Mine was Mimo. That was my grandmother, and I once called her Ida. She said, "Don't you ever call me that again. Call me Mimo."
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What kind of a grandma are you?
I'm not intrusive.
But you've got to be warm, loving in terms of
I love my grandchildren.
I mean, they know they
but
come to you.
I mean, they know that I'm just their grandmother.
Yeah.
I'm not a parent. I don't get pushy.
Which one of your children do you think is most like you? Which one of your children?
I think they're all, in their own different ways, very like me. I don't know. It's hard to say. My daughter Liza is such a combination of Mike and me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she has the stubbornness of both of us.
Now, Michael's an actor, isn't he?
Yeah.
And Chris is an artist?
Chris is now editing.
Oh.
And he's really enjoying that.
He's got an honest job now, huh?
Yeah.
Or at least a regular one. And Liza does what?
Liza's an artist.
That's right.
She's a sculptress and a brilliant one.
And Maria has modeled, and now she's acting. Yeah. Oh, she's a housewife. Is she acting at all?
No.
No. And generally, they've stayed out of the press, pretty much.
They've done everything they can to.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that something in growing up with so much of it?
The Burtons divorced, then remarried and divorced again. It was the end of a 14-year passionate romance, the longest of her life. What went wrong?
Perhaps, it sounds silly, I think we would have been married again. I think we were so passionately in love with each other that the highs were too high. It was almost like everything was too much. We loved each other almost too much. It sounds silly.
No, it doesn't.
But it was so intense that it was almost abnormal. But it was great. And we thought about each other, and we talked about each other, and whenever we'd see each other.
Even after the divorce?
Oh, yeah, in between
divorce.
marriages and stuff, we'd flirt with each other, and if we were sitting next to each other, we'd feel each other under the table. And it was very hard for me to accept his death. It took a long time.
Was he the love of your life?
Mike and Richard were the loves of my life. They were both geniuses.
We're talking about Mike Todd and Richard Burton.
Yeah. And they could both charm dogs, cats, flies, men, women, you name it.
You?
Oh, me.
After all the marriages, divorces, and the accompanying chaotic lifestyle, it was not hard to imagine that Elizabeth might seek calmer, more stable surroundings. At the end of 1976, just months after her second divorce from Richard Burton, Elizabeth tied the knot for the 7th time. The groom was John Warner, then a budding politician from Virginia. As always, she expected this marriage to last forever. In Warner's successful campaign for U.S. Senator, Elizabeth was at his side, drawing crowds wherever they appeared. And as you know, and you and I have talked about it, he is an old friend of mine and someone I know
and
you're
he's an
still
old
very
friend of
fond,
mine.
an old friend of yours. And we did an interview then. Do you remember?
I do. In the kitchen.
In the kitchen.
On the farm.
What's her greatest virtue? What's Elizabeth Taylor's greatest virtue and greatest fault?
Well, greatest virtue and greatest fault. Well, her greatest virtue is that she's made me terribly happy. And fault, she just burns up a lot of food now and then. I don't know. It's hard to say, Barbara. I wish she'd take better care of herself.
Are you worried about putting on weight?
No.
Oh, yeah.
Does it matter to you?
No, it doesn't.